You're listening to The Hard Truth with John Deaton. John Deaton is a Marine veteran, lawyer, and best-selling author who stared down poverty, survived street violence, and beat cancer to fight another day. From the streets to the courtroom, Deaton has taken on corporate greed and fought against government fraud and overreach. Always for the little guy, a proud father of 3 girls, Deaton brings you the raw, unfiltered truth that hits hard and holds nothing back. Join us as we dive into his journey, his vision, and what he hopes to bring to the people of Massachusetts.
Don't touch that dial or dare change the channel, because it is Sunday at 7 p.m. and you're listening to The Hard Truth with John Deaton on iHeart's WRKO 680 AM. Good evening, everybody. I hope you had a good week. I'm not going to claim that I had a great week. Unfortunately, I buried and said goodbye to my younger sister, Norma. I just want to say that God bless you, Norma. Rest in peace. And to everyone out there, just remember, if we don't have our health, we don't have anything. And so my sister at 53 years old died of congestive heart failure. It makes you wake up. You know, when you get my age at 58 years old, you start having family members die or friends pass away. And it's just a realization of our very, very short time on this planet. So listen, if you want to reach me, remember, you can reach me at john@hardtruthshow.com, john@hardtruthshow.com. I sometimes read your comments or your emails. I did read emails that people sent offering their condolences for my sister and my loss. I appreciate that more than you can imagine. Unfortunately, you know, all of us are going to experience those kinds of losses in our lives, and it's tough. But thank you so much for the warm wishes and the condolences. Sometimes you email me and you criticize me. I'll read those as well. And listen, if you want to come on the show, ordinary person, ordinary listener, you want to take issue with something I said, you want to challenge me on something I said, if you want to show me that I got it wrong, I will bring you on the show. We can have a great discussion. We've got to get back to talking to each other instead of having this division where you're told that the other side that disagrees with you doesn't love America and that they're not patriots and that they're bad people. That's not true. We have to end this toxic division that is eating this country from the inside. So if you disagree with me and you want to come on here and respectfully have a civil debate or discussion, I will do that. I will bring you on. As you know, sometimes I highlight some of you out there, small business owners. You know, I want to bring you on the show, talk about your business, talk about what you're doing for the community, anything like that. So reach me at john@hardtruthshow.com. You can follow me on X at John E. Deaton and the number 1, John E. Deaton and the number 1. And if you really want to know everything about me, you can read my book, Food Stamp Warrior, at Amazon. And finally, unfortunately, I hope you don't have to contact me this way, but if you have a loved one that is suffering from lung cancer or mesothelioma caused by asbestos exposure, that is what I've been doing in the Commonwealth and in New England states, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, for the last 30 years, representing regular, ordinary people, electricians and plumbers and shipyard workers, even stay-home moms, wives who wash the clothes, auto mechanics, iron workers. I mean, the list just goes on. You can contact me at the DeatonLawFirm.com, DeatonLawFirm.com. All right, with all of that in, me talking about the things that help pay the bills, let's talk about what's going on. There's never a slow week when we have President Donald Trump in office. One thing, it's very difficult for people to keep up with the man. We got to give him credit. For someone who is pushing 80 years old, it's very difficult to keep up with him and keep the pace that he keeps. It's not a lie, apparently, that he only sleeps 2 or 3, maybe 4 hours a night. But he had a big week, And I want to talk about that. But before we get to some very big successes that I think that even the Democrats and the people on the far left that hate Trump, they're going to have to start giving some kind of admissions, if you will, that some of the policies are at least not causing the catastrophic, emergency, the sky is falling kind of news that they were saying that his tariffs would cause, or that his policies would cause, his foreign policy, all of those things. We're going to unpack that. I'm going to start, though, because there is more news on the Epstein stuff. And the reason I want to do that, remember last week, I played that clip where I challenged Senator Elizabeth Warren when she didn't ask any questions of J.P. Morgan Chase, the CEO. And remember, J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the largest banks in the world, I actually think it is the largest bank in the world, they financed the Epstein child sex trafficking operation for decades. And their executives participated with bad stuff on the island. I went over all that stuff, and I challenged Elizabeth Warren, said, J.P. Morgan Chase settled for $290 million to Epstein victims. They had to pay $75 million to the U.S. Virgin Islands. And when he was, available for questioning, how come you didn't ask him a single question about all that stuff? Why not add, you oversee banks. You're on the banking committee in the Senate. Why was this bank financing the child sex operation? And I got to tell you, it's because Elizabeth Warren's husband is on the logs. Elizabeth Warren's friends, Bill Clinton on the island, Bill Gates on the island, big donors, people that she knows. I said it to her face on the stage, if you remember. And I said last week that the Epstein situation is not going to go away. I said that President Donald Trump misjudged the Epstein issue. He's usually on point with his base, with the people who support him. But when he was dismissive of it and said, forget about it, when you have all these inconsistencies, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Donald Trump Jr., all of these people out there saying, we got to unleash the Epstein files. We got to unleash the Epstein files. All those people saying he didn't commit suicide. And then all of a sudden they get in office and say, yep, nothing to look here. He committed suicide, no doubt. Here's a videotape. Oh, by the way, the videotape has 2 minutes missing, completely edited from the government. We're not going to give you that, but we're going to show you, a video of nothing and tell you that we just proved that he killed himself. It's nonsense. And I said it's not going to go away, and it's not going away. Well, the Deputy Attorney General, not Pam Bondi, but the second person under Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice, this guy has spent 2 full days with Maxwell. Remember, Ghislaine Maxwell is the girlfriend and, sort of the pimp, if you will, in a female version of getting girls to Epstein Island for Jeffrey Epstein to abuse. And she's been serving 20-year conviction because the government prosecuted her. And she got 20 years because she is guilty as sin for basically trafficking these young girls to Jeffrey Epstein Island to be raped, to be abused. But there's something that always stood out, which is, why wasn't anyone else prosecuted? So yes, Epstein got arrested. He got a sweetheart deal. No one knows why. Some people said he was intelligence. Remember, the federal prosecutor who prosecuted Epstein gave him that sweetheart deal, that get out of jail free card, basically. And he was told by higher ups in the Department of Justice that Jeffrey Epstein was, in fact, belonged to intelligence agencies. Now, whether that's Mossad from Israel or the CIA or the FBI, I don't know, but that's what the guy said. Okay, but then he gets arrested again, and you got to remember there is a non-prosecution agreement. His lawyers were going to invoke that non-prosecution agreement saying that the government violated it when they arrested him a second time. Jeffrey Epstein thought he was getting out of jail. And think about that. A narcissist like him who gets out of jail the first time and then enters a non-prosecution agreement with the United States government, and then he gets arrested a second time. And he's sitting in jail, and his lawyer tells him, yeah, I think you're going to get out on bail in the next week. And I think we got a really good chance, Jeffrey, that this non-prosecution agreement, they're going to have to honor it. I'm going to get these charges dismissed from you, Jeffrey. That's what his lawyer was saying to him. Now, people want you to believe that after hearing from his lawyer that he's probably getting out on bail and that there's a really good chance the whole case is going away, like the first one did because of this non-prosecution agreement, that Jeffrey Epstein then that night went into his cell and he hung himself. And when he hung himself with a sheet over a bedpost that's like 4 feet high, maybe 5 feet high, he fractured the bone in his neck that normally doesn't get fractured when you hang yourself from a sheet. That bone, hyoid bone in your neck that floats right where the Adam's apple is above the voice box, it floats. So like a sheet goes near it, it's just going to float and move away from the sheet. That bone gets fractured a lot when people get manually strangled or there's a ligature involved. By ligature, I mean a rope, I mean an extension cord, a broom handle, something very forceful that is applied to the neck and fractures that bone. Okay? And so then, of course, his brother said he didn't think he killed himself. Maxwell said she didn't think he killed himself. But the government wants us to believe that he killed himself and gave us that 4-minute video that has 2 minutes missing, proving nothing. Okay? And so, look, I don't believe it. You can write into john@hardtruthshow.com and let me know what you think. When we come back from the break, we're going to get into this great week that President Trump had. And I'll finish this Epstein stuff. You are listening to The Hard Truth with John Deaton on iHeart's WRKO. All right, welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Hard Truth. I am John Deaton, and this is WRKO, 680 AM, iHeart. Listen, guys, we were talking about Epstein just before the break, and the thing that we know, in addition to all the unanswered questions surrounding his death and how he made his money, he went from a teacher to a billionaire owning an island, right? So many unanswered questions. Did he belong to intelligence? All that. But let's go back up to Maxwell's prosecution for a minute. How come no one was prosecuted, right? We know that girls were trafficked to that island and to his Manhattan apartment. But not one single person other than Jeffrey Epstein and his girlfriend. And so we've heard about this list. And I've said to you that that doesn't mean that there's a black book, right, that has every name in it. Now, I would assume that Maxwell would have something like that because she has to have contacts, Rolodex, whatever you want to be. The list could be on the phone, could be her iPhone, whatever. But there are other people who participated. We know that in the civil lawsuit by the victims, names came up. Leon Black was the co-founder of Apollo Group, a billionaire. He was involved. Jeff Stately, who was vice president of J.P. Morgan Chase, he was involved. That's the guy who emailed Epstein about Snow White experience, and he wanted Belle from Beauty and the Beast the next time he went to the island. Okay? None of these people have been prosecuted. Well, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States spent 2 full days, and the reports are that Maxwell gave him 100 names of people, basically call it the client list. And there's going to be more information being released at a later time. There's also talks about for her cooperation, will President Trump pardon her? Not necessarily pardon her. Will he commute her sentence? Remember, the president can do a full pardon and your conviction is gone forever. Or the president can commute your sentence. In other words, he could say, listen, you've already been in prison for 5 years. Time served is enough, and then you can be released. If it's federal charges, state charges, the president can't do that. The governor of each state can. Okay, so that's where we are with the Epstein situation. I will keep track with it. We will report it. We're not going to let it go because Americans are tired of a two-tier justice system. We're tired of the haves and the super wealthy having one system of justice and the rest of us have another system of justice. And we're tired of politicians just sweeping everything under the rug to protect the rich and the powerful. We're sick of it. Second, these girls who were victimized deserve justice. They deserve someone fighting for them. And so we're going to continue to fight for them. All right, now I want to play you something here. And this was on CNBC today, or actually on Friday. But let me play it and check it out.
The left and people that don't like the president and don't want things to work. And, like Senator Elizabeth Warren will come on and say, inflation's out of control and the economy is getting killed by what's happening by these tariffs. This 3% with the market at new highs, and really we haven't seen inflation, go up back to 3%. Maybe it will this week. Maybe we'll see it. But none of these horrible things have happened, but they still talk like it's happening. It's amazing.
Well, there's an important lesson there. Don't pick a congressman to be your money manager. That's what I would say. But in the end, Congress has their own reasons to point out certain things. And the Democrats, of course, as you pointed out, really don't want to see the current administration have some success. But there's no doubt that this is some success. We're seeing more horsepower. We're seeing better equities. Inflation really hasn't changed much in the last year or so.
All right. So there's some good things happening. That was Joe Kernan on CNBC talking about how people like Elizabeth Warren continue to say that the sky is falling, that America is crumbling, the economy is crumbling, even though we just got a business report that gross domestic product basically is at 3%. It was significantly higher. In addition to that, we had a surplus from tariffs. And the tariffs remember, there was that fear that the tariffs were going to destroy the economy when Trump announced that he was, putting all these tariffs unilaterally on these countries. And then the market crashed and it was down 2,000 points a day for a while. And then Trump said, well, I'm going to suspend it, but we're going to work on settlement deals. At the end of the day, whether I approve or you approve of President Trump's methodology, this is real data that we're talking about right now. We're not talking about John Deaton's opinion. We're not talking about Elizabeth Warren's opinion. We're talking about real data of 3% GDP. Inflation is slightly ticked down, and that's great news for the economy. But you've got these people like Senator Warren, Ed Markey, Maura Healey. They just are rooting against America. Listen, people, I didn't vote for President Trump. Many of you know that. Many of you hold it against me, and I understand that. Many of you agree with me. But I will never root against my country. And although I didn't support President Trump, I certainly didn't support Kamala, you know that, I'm still going to root for my country, and I'm going to root for the success of my president. I want the president to be successful. If the president's successful, America can be successful. And so I just don't get how these politicians like Warren and Markey, and they just won't admit if there's anything good happening. It's okay to admit that it's good that the southern border is down. Illegal crossings are down 93%. 93%. That's good. It's okay. Even if you're a Democrat, you should be able to say, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that we don't have continued out of control, unsustainable, illegal immigration. We got 12 million illegals that came through the border under the Biden administration. In 3.5 years, when I went to the border, when I ran for Senate, I was told that it was 12 million people in 3.5 years. Well, you can't have 4 million people, illegals, crossing the border every year. It's unsustainable. So it's okay. If you're a Democrat, if you're a liberal, if you're a progressive, it's okay to say, you know what? I don't agree with President Trump snatching people out of the street. You can say that. You can say that. But it is good that our border is secured. And it just kills me that politicians like Warren and Markey and them, they just can't bring themselves to admit anything that is decent. So now I want to play something else. This is Abby Phillip from CNN, okay? And this is what was predicted, 4 months ago and all that. So check this out.
Palpable panic on Wall Street, red numbers and worries about something else that starts with an R, a recession.
What we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time.
He's talking about that period of transition is what he's talking about is his firm belief that tariffs are going to be the main way that the United States brings in revenue. Never mind what they do to the prices that people actually pay when they purchase goods in a global economy. I mean, Scott, virtually no one who understands economics believes that tariffs are a good idea, including all those people that we played in the clip to get into this conversation, most of whom side with Trump. They believe in Trump. They're supporters of his.
Yeah, he firmly believes in it. It's his theory. And guess what? He ran on it and he got elected on it. And for his theory to take root, it will take some period of time. And he will rise and fall on this theory.
Are you comfortable with Trump rolling the dice on the United States' economy based on his hunch that we should go back to, the McKinley era tariffs?
Am I comfortable that the person who was duly elected president of the United States be allowed to govern in the way that he said he would in order to win the election? Of course I am.
Okay, so, and that was Abby Phillip and, of course, the infamous Scott Jennings on CNN. And, of course, that was 4 months ago where Abby and the people on the left, CNN, MSNBC, were saying that the sky's fallen, that the tariffs are going to destroy America. And I got to tell you, I believe in tariffs if they're strategic. I've said that from the beginning. If China is stealing our intellectual property and we want to slap them some tariffs on them to stop that, or if China is subsidizing their, let's say, their electric car vehicles, making a Chinese car so much more cheaper than a Tesla or a General Motors electric car, not because the Chinese auto manufacturer is doing a better job, but because the Chinese government is subsidizing it just to undercut American manufacturers. Then, of course, in situations like that, I say slap them with a strategic tariff as well. I didn't overtly criticize President Trump's tariff plan, but I was reserved about it. And, it's still a little early, but it has not had the catastrophic event that everybody was calling for, and it seems to be winning, and we're going to talk about those tariffs when we come back. Listen, you're listening to The Hard Truth. I'm John Deaton. You can reach the show at john@hardtruthshow.com, john@hardtruthshow.com. Come back after the break. The Hard Truth is paid for by the Deaton Law Firm. I've been representing mesothelioma and lung cancer victims for 23 years across the Commonwealth. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer and were exposed to asbestos, you contact me at the Deaton Law Firm. That's DeatonLawFirm.com. You can also reach me here at this show at thehardtruthshow.com. That's John at hardtruthshow.com. John at hardtruthshow.com.
You're listening to The Hard Truth with John Deaton. John Deaton is a Marine veteran, lawyer, and best-selling author who stared down poverty, survived street violence, and beat cancer to fight another day. From the streets to the courtroom, Deaton has taken on corporate greed and fought against government fraud and overreach. Always for the little guy, a proud father of 3 girls, Deaton brings you the raw, unfiltered truth that hits hard and holds nothing back. Join us as we dive into his journey, his vision, and what he hopes to bring to the people of Massachusetts.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. You listen to The Hard Truth. I'm John Deaton. I was going to give you the address again. It's John at hardtruthshow.com. John at hardtruthshow.com. Please give me your comments. Give me your criticisms. Come on the show. Let's have a real conversation, okay? Now, I want to play something else for you here, and it's about this week that Trump has had. Something pretty big took place, historic in the last week, and it's even got the mainstream media reluctantly talking about it. All right, check it out.
The early reviews are in on the new trade deal announced with the European Union. The Financial Times says the deal marks a victory for Trump.
Is this a fantastic deal then struck by Donald Trump?
Absolutely a victory on behalf of the Trump administration.
Isabel, the bottom line is this is the biggest trade deal in President Trump's effort to effectively reshape the global trading order.
On this deal, the European Union, this is a big win for the U.S.
The bigger picture is that Trump is still very much pursuing his longer-term goal of achieving what he perceives to be fairness for America.
It's a triumph of a lot of things. Certainly, the president ought to take a victory lap. I think it ends up being good for the European Union. It's a blow against the conventional wisdom.
It's a blow against conventional wisdom. What everybody's talking about, just so you know, those channels, that was CNBC, that was MSNBC. That was CNBC, that was MSNBC, that was CNN, that was mainstream media reluctantly saying this deal that President Trump just struck is a great deal. It's fantastic. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to come up with any kind of bad, negative way to approach it. But I'm sure that Senator Elizabeth Warren or Senator Ed Markey or Maura Healey or Michelle Wu, or I'm sure these politicians who just can't give any credit to anyone unless it fits their far left agenda narrative, I'm sure they could come up with some criticism. But basically, this is what happened. And that is President Trump just went over to the EU, the European Union, and he struck a deal. And this is the deal. I just want to give you some highlights, okay? The European Union has agreed to purchase $750 billion worth of our American energy, okay? $750 billion of American energy. In addition to that, they have agreed to invest another $600 billion into America. So you have $750 billion. You're going to buy our energy. You know, we're talking about our natural gas. We're talking about oil. And in addition to that $750 billion, you're going to invest $600 billion into American investments, American manufacturing, or what have you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is obviously, we're talking about $1.4, $1.5 trillion. Talking about a lot of money, talking about a lot of investments. Okay, now, in addition to that, there is a 15% tariff on EU products. And that's it. And there'll be a 15% tariff for American. And they can't raise it. Basically, that imbalance that existed is gone. And what we did to get the $1.45 trillion in investments was that we allowed the EU to buy our military equipment, American-made military equipment, military munitions, missiles, rockets, protective gear, technology, drones, whatever they want to buy from American military contractors, they can buy. But the key word there, ladies and gentlemen, is the word buy. President Trump didn't say, well, if you invest all this money and you keep the tariffs at this level equal to the United States, we're going to give you. He said, no, we're going to allow you to spend more money of yours buying American-made military equipment. Now, that is an extraordinary accomplishment. And even if you suffer from TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, even if you hate President Trump, you have to be able to say, yeah, you know, that's a pretty damn good deal for America. And so here at The Hard Truth, we're going to call it like it see it. And I'm not going to say I was wrong on the tariffs yet because, you know, some products have went up and some American manufacturers have eaten some of the tariffs. But, you know, it's only been 6 months. I can say it's been a very good 6 months for President Trump and as far as his successes. And there have been lots of good news, the trillions of dollars, you know, whether it's GE going to make their washing machines in America or whether it's Honda's moving some of their manufacturing back to America. Look, I'm not suggesting that we're going to return, you know, back to the 60s for automotive industry here in America and that manufacturing is going to be where we lead. But you have to give credit where credit is due, and that's what I'm attempting to do. So, very good week, very good news on that. Now, let's talk about something that has been a big controversy this week. And I got to tell you, I can't believe it. Every time I think that the far left can't get more out of touch with reality and with everyday Americans, they end up surprising me. And every time I say, okay, they can't surprise me more, they've hit rock bottom with their wokeness. They end up going woker than they did before. And what I'm referencing, a lot of you know what I'm talking about. It is this Sydney Sweeney, you know, jean commercial. American Eagle has got Sydney Sweeney, who is an American actress and an American model. She's an attractive woman, and she's got new commercials for jeans, blue jeans, you know, the jeans you wear every day. And it shows her in these commercials, and these commercials are using a play on words. They're using the word jeans as far as the genes that make up your DNA and the jeans that you wear as pants. And basically, Sydney Sweeney in this commercial says that she has good genes. Get it? She's an attractive woman and she has good genes, but she's wearing blue jeans. And it's a very effective commercial. The jeans that she's advertising in the commercial have sold out across America. She is the best thing that could ever happen to her. This, I can't even believe it's a controversy, but you know, her following shot up incredibly. Hundreds of thousands of people started following her because people on the left said that that commercial is racist. And that commercial is a Nazi commercial, that it favors Nazism. And it makes your head spin around. It's just an attractive female wearing a pair of blue jeans, bragging that she likes her jeans. And it's a play on words about the jeans, her blue eyes and, her skin tone or her teeth, whatever good that was handed down. It could be your skin. Some people have great genetics, genes, and they have the great skin. Some people don't. But all of a sudden, people started saying, oh, what they're saying is that only white girls have good genes. And that is somehow suggesting that women of color or black women don't have good genes. And as soon as I heard that nonsense, I remember someone that I think is beautiful is Beyonce. And I remember Beyonce basically having a gene commercial. And I remember thinking as a man that was a good commercial because Beyonce has got good genes. She's beautiful. She looks good in jeans. It's the same thing. But now, because it's a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, attractive, thin woman, all of a sudden people want to make it seem like, oh my God, look, it's a slight on women of color, or it's Nazism because they're suggesting that you only have good genes if you have blonde hair and blue eyes. I guarantee you, I'll bet dimes to donuts that Sydney Sweeney's natural hair color isn't blonde, right? She's an actress, she's a model, and she dyed it. So it's just nonsense. And that's where we've gotten in this country. And I think that's very bad news for the Democrats. And I think it's bad news because it shows you that they've went so far left and they went so far woke that they're losing touch with regular people. I challenge you, if you haven't seen it, put in that Sydney Sweeney commercial, go to YouTube or wherever, TikTok, YouTube, wherever, put it up, listen to it. And I challenge anyone out there, write me if you disagree. There is no way that a normal, rational human being would think that this was a Nazi commercial or think that this was somehow a negative on women of color. Okay? When we come back, we'll unpack more at The Hard Truth. All right, welcome back to The Hard Truth. I'm John Deaton. You are listening to iHeart's WRKO. Remember John at hardtruthshow.com. John at hardtruthshow.com. We were talking about the Sydney Sweeney ad and how nonsense it is. And listen, I want everyone to know, if you read my book, Food Stamp Warrior, you're going to understand that I've had experience and I believe that I understand race in a way that most middle-aged, well, I'm getting older than middle-aged, I guess, but I guess I can't say I'm middle-aged. I'm 58. Yeah, I'm not going to live, to 114 or 116. So, but anyways, I digress. Listen, I've lived a unique lifestyle. I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood. I think it was 92% black. I was surrounded by people of color my entire life. I went to high school. When I was in school, there was one. I was only one of three white kids in the school. For the first 18 years of my life, I wished I was black. I joke about that in the book, Food Stamp Warrior, where I say that, if you exclude rappers and you exclude football players and sports stars and actors and entertainers, that I might be one of the few successful white male millionaires living in America who wished for the first 2 decades of his life that he was black. I was called a wigger, white with the N word, because people said that I was pretending to be black. Listen, I was growing up in the community I was growing up with. So yes, I love rap music and I love hip hop. I also love country because when I got home from being on the streets in Detroit, listening to rap and hip hop, my mother was listening to country, Loretta Lynn, Johnny Cash, Conway Twitty, all of the greats. And so I like all kinds of music. But the point is that I think I have a sensitivity to race that a lot of people don't have. I understand the power of racial identity, and I understand the race dynamic, in ways that a lot of people in my position, my age, my color, don't understand. And with that said, I still look at that Sydney commercial, and the only way that you could read into that commercial that there's something negative about anyone else is if it's something inside you that you're working with and dealing with. Because more than two things can be equal. Beyonce can do a jean commercial and look beautiful, which she did. And Sydney Sweeney can do a jean commercial and look beautiful, like she did. And I just think this is a reaction because if we go back, there was this effort where advertisers wouldn't even want to put women that were blonde, blue-eyed, and thin on commercials. They wanted to celebrate, heavier women, and that's okay. But when you go woke to the point that people are going woke, you're going to lose touch with reality. And so, if you disagree with me and you think that commercial, that I'm missing something, then you reach in. I'll bring you on the show and we'll have an honest discussion about it because, maybe I am missing something. I don't think I am. I think I'm pretty sensitive to these issues, but I don't see it. Okay. Now, something else that happened this week, another victory for President Trump, to be honest with you, deals with NATO. And this is another example. The small countries, the Baltic states, that are on the border of Russia and Belarus, Lithuania, and other countries, they have come out and told President Trump that not only are they going to pay at least 2% of the country's GDP for national defense, according to the targets set by NATO, but they're going to do 5%. They went and said, look, President Trump, we're not going to do 2%. We're going to do 5%. We're going to do more than double. Now, you got to remember, President Trump at one point went abroad and he shamed our allies, countries like Germany. He said, look, since 1949, America has been the pocketbook for NATO. America has been funding NATO and disproportionately paying for all of your defense. And that's going to stop. You're going to have to pay your fair share. America is not going to continue to let you skate on your own national defense, and America is going to just pick up the bill for you and do it. And so when President Trump said that, people on the left went nuts. They were like, you're bashing our allies, and you humiliated Germany, and Trump doesn't believe in NATO. And Trump said things like, he was reconsidering America's role in NATO. And people thought he lost his mind. And turns out that it was part of the negotiation, sort of like the tariffs, where you sound like you're crazy and you're going to slap all these arbitrary high tariffs on countries like Canada, Mexico, and they panic because they're thinking, wow, this guy might actually do it, and then they come to the table. So Trump basically, in what I believe, bluffed. Was it a bluff? I don't know. But he basically said, hey, America is rethinking NATO. And if you don't pay for your own defense, we're not. And you got to remember in NATO, and a lot of people think NATO should be abolished because it doesn't apply like it did then. That was the Cold War, the Soviet Union, blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is Trump made them think that he was going to leave NATO, which would mean that they're on their own. Because remember, with NATO, the most important thing to understand is Article 5 of NATO. And Article 5 basically says an attack against one member of NATO is an attack against all members of NATO. It's this collective defense. Therefore, if a small country gets invaded by Russia, and that small country is a member of NATO, then that small country is going to say, Article 5, an attack against us is an attack against all of NATO, and is then going to expect America, Germany, France, Canada, and the whole world that belongs to NATO, all the countries that are NATO members, to come to their aid and rescue them, defend them, all of those things. And President Trump said, hey, if you don't pay your share, then guess what? America might leave NATO. Well, President Trump also said something about Ukraine war. He said that not only was he going to end it, but he said that, he had to rethink it. And so a lot of people said, oh my God, you're abandoning Ukraine. And then what did he get? There's a minerals deal where the reconstruction of Ukraine that has invaluable minerals, rare earth minerals, things of that nature, we're going to get some of that. And America is going to benefit because America gave you money. Well, Trump now is sending, and he stopped some weapons to Ukraine, and then he now is sending weapons to Ukraine, but NATO members are buying it. So America's being paid for it, and it goes to help Ukraine defend themselves. Well, the same concept, these small countries, now they're going to pay 5% of GDP, and the reason is they're worried because Russia went into Ukraine. Now, remember, Ukraine was not a member of NATO. Zelensky was trying to become a member of NATO so he could invoke that Article 5 provision. Now, these countries see that Russia is not coming to the table for peace, and they're worried. And they're worried that Trump might leave NATO. So they're now paying 5%. They're now paying money to American manufacturers, military contractors, and all those things. And they're more than doubling their money on defense because they're saying, hey, look, President Trump, we're helping defend ourselves. So if we get invaded, we expect America to be there for us. And so very interesting. This whole Ukraine thing is a pushback because a lot of people in the base are disappointed that President Trump, actually Pete Hegseth, just came out and reaffirmed that America is strengthening NATO. So here's an example where what the left realized at first, oh, he's going to leave NATO. You fast forward 6 months and NATO is sort of getting stronger. If you look at the tariffs, oh my God, the world's coming down. American economy is going to crash. Everybody's going to lose all their 401ks. We're going to go bankrupt. And now we have a surplus for the first time from tariffs. The GDP is at 3%. Inflation is down. The southern border is secured. And there's this renewal of American manufacturing. Listen, there's a long ways to go to the midterms. But if this continues, it's going to be bad news for the Democrats. And somebody, and I don't know who it could be, but somebody is going to have to take on Ed Markey, a guy that's been there for 50 years. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. This is John Deaton. You're listening to The Hard Truth.
You're listening to The Hard Truth with John Deaton. John Deaton is a Marine